Hey, and welcome to today's episode. Well, it looks a bit weird in here, right? Today, I'm so lucky to actually be recording in person while there is a fly literally trying to sit on my third eye. That is crazy. With an incredible human. So I get to share this amazing place with the owner, Josh Trent. And if you haven't heard of Josh Trent, he has an amazing podcast called Wellness and Wisdom, which I've just been on. And this human is epic. Can't wait for you to get to know him. Josh, welcome to the potty.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Me
I
too.
feel like I'm going to hear lots of like, oh my God, yep, I resonate with that because you've had such a journey so far.
Yeah.
I always love to start at this place where I believe that we are faced with like a specific dark night of the soul. And in that moment, we're actually being invited into our purpose. This is the moment where for some reason, courage comes from nowhere and we're like, oh, nope, I'm not going to roll over and die. I'm actually going to take this road and it feels uncomfortable and scary. And inevitably that path becomes, who we are today. So I'd really love to hear about your journey. And being a 3-5, there's probably been a few dark nights of the soul, but tell me a bit about that journey to become the man you are today.
My mom, it starts with a mother always, right? Mm-hmm. We are birthed from a mother. Nobody that is alive did not come from a mother.
This is true.
No matter what society says. And I think it's really beautiful because I chose in contract to be birthed by a mom that was struggling with bipolar in utero and also for my whole life. My dad did the best he could, but he was struggling with demons. So he wasn't present. He left when I was 2 months old. And so I was set up for a challenge, right? And the more I learn about human design, the more it will probably make sense. The challenge was, how do I feel safe in a body where I didn't feel safe when I was in my mom's body?
Oh, God.
And that's a big challenge for me and for men that then go on to try to accomplish things. But the fuel source is not coming from peace and power. The fuel source is coming from desperation to prove oneself that I'm safe and so is everybody else because it's my responsibility to fix you, which is the wrong fuel source. And so that journey took me on drug use, pornography, womanizing, like you name it. I didn't do any hard drugs, but really went the path of addiction. And I love this quote by Gabor Mate. He says, the addiction is the disconnection from self or others. And so I was an addict. And I learned a lot about myself through that addiction process. Like what actually makes me feel peace and wholeness is the truth. Oh. But I was so afraid of the truth. I was so afraid of facing my mom's illness for what it was. I was afraid of my father because I wanted him to be something he wasn't. Mm-hmm. I was so afraid of myself because I had this gnarly narrative of like not being enough and you're too fat and no women like you, which actually paradoxically drove my pornography and womanizing.
Yeah, wow.
So that set me up for a journey where I didn't have an awareness of self. I was a trainer for 10 years. And this is what we all do. We shine light on other people. This is actually, it's funny. I'm wearing this shirt for y'all on video. It says leaders hold lanterns.
I love it.
And I believe that when we hold a lantern up, we illuminate our learning process and our stuff. We help other people do the same. We give them permission. But if I'm just shining a flashlight like I did for 10 years as a trainer, then the space between me and the light is dark. It stays dark. I never illuminate my stuff publicly, therefore I don't heal. Because it's in the sharing of me to the world that I actually get to be honest with myself. And then there's no addiction possible if there's the truth. So once I got to this place where it was complete shutdown, I think in 6 months, I put my mom in a mental home. I broke up from a 3+ year relationship and I got fired from a safe corporate job.
Yeah, wow.
So it was like 3 big uppercuts. And I was a couple $100 a month renting a room at the Omni La Costa in San Diego, my friend's spare bedroom. And I just, for the first time in my life, I'd been very angry at God for a long time. Why can't you fix my mom? Why is the earth so messed up? What are taxes? Why are adults so angry at each other? There's so much more to life than this. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
And I just looked up at the sky because I thought that's where God lived. I know that's different now. And I said, God, what would you like me to do? Because I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here like this anymore. I wasn't like considering suicide, but I was literally I was a cog in someone else's dream for so long that I just was done with that life. And I just made a promise to myself right there at late 2014. I was like, I will never live someone else's dream ever again. I'm going to commit to living my dream, my life. And that was where the podcast was born.
Wow.
10 years ago.
Oh my God, I love that. There's so much I want to respond to. And isn't it crazy how we live as the support act in our life for so many years without even realizing, like, no, I'm actually the main character in my own life.
Right. I'm not an NPC.
Yeah.
I'm not a background character. I'm the main character.
Yeah. And I think that that's scary. I think a lot of what you're talking about right now, and I'm kind of curious about your opinion on like men's mental health at the moment, because we're in this time where I reckon like what you were going through is really common.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're not seeing men kind of pop out the other end like you have, in a way that you've taken responsibility, you feel empowered. It's forever a journey. Like, I think we're always going to be on the journey. I don't think I'm going to pop out the other end and be the Dalai Lama anytime soon. But I'm really curious about that journey, because I feel like I know that isn't like men, like suicide of men is like the second biggest thing killing men in the US, isn't it?
I would probably say that's true. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's up there.
I'm pretty sure, because I remember hearing it and going, what?
Yeah.
It could even be the largest killer after heart disease or something like that. And it's because it's this whole men don't know how to love themselves and they feel like they're being attacked. I mean,
it's an epidemic of loneliness. Yeah. This is what, and lover or hater, that's fine. Just like most people feel about you and I. Love or hate is fine.
Exactly.
We're going to be ourselves anyway.
Exactly.
Teal Swan wrote a book called The Anatomy of Loneliness, and our mutual friend Luke Story is writing a book about loneliness. And that was his path of addiction, is facing his own loneliness. And so I think for men, we are taught to shut up, make money, sleep with as many women as possible, because that's glorified, and it's been glorified for many decades, and act as you are the steward and manifest destiny, and to hell with everyone else, because it's all about you making money, you providing, and you being the strong, silent Gary Cooper that doesn't say anything. You being John Wayne. These were the idols, right? The men that like didn't listen to women, had no curiosity about how to interplay with masculine and feminine energies. They would just operate from this super old paradigm. And when you operate from a super old paradigm as a man, you leave zero space for feminine energy in yourself. And Carl Jung talked about this with the anima and the animus. So the masculine inside of a woman and the feminine inside of a man deserve just as much attention as the sex they were born into. But that's been really, I remember a quote that can I curse on your podcast?
Yeah, please go for it.
Okay, because that's me being real.
Yeah, me too.
I remember when I was in high school, the coach would say, stop being a pussy, just throw some dirt on it and get back out there.
Yep.
When I was in football. And so being a pussy was like the worst thing. It meant that you were like not a man. So no man wants to be a pussy, which is so ironic, because it's like the most sacred.
I know, right?
It's the most sacred organ on planet Earth.
Exactly.
Right?
Like
the
literally,
vagina.
it's making everything, mate. Like
we all came from that area.
Exactly.
So I find that ironic, but I think that at the core of your question is, why is there this swelling and this purging of men's mental health and suicide? It's because what it meant to be a man decades ago no longer is valid. It's just not valid for the times we're in. And so I think part of my role is learning publicly about the feminine energy in myself, not because it makes me weaker. It makes me 20, 50, 100 times stronger, because then I can let emotion pass through me and it doesn't hold me hostage, which is at the core of my work with emotional epigenetics. I showed it to you before we recorded.
Oh, and I cannot wait to talk
when
about it.
When we're nourishing ourselves, when we can process emotion, then we can actually be in union with God. But if we don't process emotion, like Hawkins talks about, the feeling in his frequency scale, the feeling is the master of all emotions. Emotions are just something that's moving through us. It's emotion, energy in motion. That's the phrase. So I think that's the epidemic, really, of loneliness, which is good. It's happening for our good, I believe. Because the old way isn't working, and we're going into this new time period where men get to feel their emotions. It's so funny. I would have never thought I'd be on a podcast sharing this from my upbringing.
I love
I'm
that.
sitting here with you talking about men. It's all good to feel your emotions. It's actually really strong of you to feel it.
And it's crazy because, as a woman who's now like, I'm 50 and single, and what is fascinating is just watching from this kind of perspective of how different the world is and how different men are. And like, we're even staying with a friend of mine and her partner, and I'm like, well, you are the real deal. And I've got to meet you and a bunch of your friends while I'm over here. And I'm like, wow, like these are men. They're like whole. Because I think that's one of the things that women have been experiencing as well. Like for me, my masculine was out of control.
Yeah.
So I think that everything you're talking about is so important, that we have to bring all of this back into balance and stop shaming ourselves for one or the other, and start to really discover who am I on the inside and how does that express out there?
You said shame. Shame is the lowest frequency we can ever feel. I think it's 20 hertz from Hawkins' work.
Yep.
It's the lowest.
It is the lowest. It is the base of narcissism.
It's the base of, it's the survival paradigm in Hawkins' work.
Yeah.
So before we can ever get to reason or acceptance and love, we've got to learn. There's no other way out. You know, these platitudes, the only way out is through, Emma.
Yeah.
So true.
It is true.
Don't let it be a platitude. Let it be a life guidepost. So yeah, the shame is like, it's so hard because shame, it can be a trap. To get stuck in shame gives this like pseudo aliveness. And I felt shame deeply around pornography and women. And I harbored that for so long. And it was only through plant medicine, float tanks, nonviolent communication, and even doing my podcast that I've taught myself how to feel emotion. And I'm still getting better all the time. I mean, you spent time with my fiance, right? Like, we're not perfect.
Wow, no one's perfect.
No one's perfect. But I think at the core of this, if we can, it's a really powerful tool that's in the core of my work. And Hawkins, I think it was 40 plus years that he was an MD, PhD psychiatrist. And if you look at his work, it really was informed by Jung and it was informed by the masters that came before him. I want to carry that on. And I want to make sure that men know it's not only okay to feel, it's powerful. It makes you so much more of a man when you feel your stuff and you share your stuff. Now there's oversharing too, and there's strategic vulnerability. Where somebody could get on a podcast and be like, I'm about to be vulnerable, y'all. So pay attention. It's like, that's when they're not going to be vulnerable, when they're warning you. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, I love that. And I really feel like as a mum of 2 boys, I think it's so incredibly powerful. You know, like I've always talked about I'm raising men. I'm not raising large boys, like adult boys.
Yes.
I'm raising men.
Yes.
And really this whole, like the whole man needs to be raised. And that's what I love about your work and everything that you share is like, you know, I'm not perfect, but this is what I've learned. And I love hearing what I've heard about your story already because yes, there's these really practical masculine things that you've done out there and you've worked on your spiritual stuff. But ultimately, it's this journey of who am I and why am I here? And I'm going to learn to love that.
Yes.
Feel true?
Feels 100%. My stomach's like relaxed when you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was afraid of who I was before. I was actually afraid of my curiosity. I was afraid of my power. Yeah. I was afraid of what people might think if I started to talk about emotion, energy and motion. A lot of fear came up for me around the recent presentation I did at the biohacking conference, you know, going through my own emotional inventory and my own genetic library, if you will, of the things that are still living and expressing themselves in my epigenetics, in my DNA. And at the core of it, it's like, who cares? Let's just talk about it. Let's just be real about what we're working through because I'm only as liberated as my darkest secrets.
Yep.
I'm only as liberated as the things that I feel comfortable to share or even leaning into the uncomfortableness to share them. That's the juice. That's what everybody wants. They want to feel joy, but you can't have joy unless you can feel the stuff below it.
And that is so beautifully said. And the other thing is this whole piece of like everyone else is feeling it. And, you know, when we were younger, no one was saying it. And so we're kind of like our journey's been like, well, I'm feeling this stuff, but no one out there is saying things. So I got to go work it out.
Yes.
And what I love about your work is that you're literally out there saying it. So I can just imagine, because this happens with my work as well, where what you just said, like your stomach relaxed, it's this piece of, I watch people literally go, oh my God, it's okay to be me, because no one was talking about it.
Yeah.
And really the most powerful way for us to liberate our shadow is to accept it, is to say, yep, this is in me. And then the shadow's only the shadow because we keep it over there in the corner.
Yes.
The moment we bring light to it, therefore we tell others, we share it with others, we say, well, this is my experience. It's not shadow anymore. It's just a part of who we are. We've taken the judgment, the criticism away from it. And it doesn't always stay in the light. It might duck back and forward again. But ultimately, the more light we bring to it, the more it becomes this beautiful champion in our life because, you know, people like you and I are driven to go like, I need to share this with everyone. I no longer care what it means about me.
Right.
Do you want to respond to that?
Well, I used to feel, when I first started the journey, I sat for 2 years, Emma. I was like, should I share about the pornography stuff? Should I really share about the womanizing? And the more I got down to it, I was like, wow, this war in my head, it was just a mental thing. My body knew, share it, dude.
Yeah.
My body was like, just go for it.
Yeah.
But my mind was like, I don't want to be perceived as weak. I don't want to be labeled an addict. I don't want to be perceived as not a leader. And then that's when a couple years ago, when this concept came on of like, if I'm going to be a leader, it's actually my sacred responsibility to just shine a light on my stuff and everybody else's.
Yeah.
Because that's what we all want. Like a true leader really shares their stuff first, because that's how they can connect with the people that they're leading. Not because they're better than them, but because they are them.
Yeah.
We're all one and the same, right? So yeah, there was 2 years. Then finally in 2022, I changed the name of the podcast. It used to be called Wellness Force. And that word force did not work anymore for me.
Yeah.
I was like, it was actually on a mushroom journey. And I leaned over to Carrie Michelle and I was like, I just feel like I'm out of integrity with my business. I feel like I'm out of integrity with I'm not aligned to my design. And she was like, well, what are you really searching for? And I was like, well, I want to embody wisdom. I want to be the embodiment of wisdom. And she's like, well, why don't you just call it Wellness Wisdom? And then I searched and I was like, well, it's actually both. It's wellness and wisdom. And then that was 2022. And then that's when I really started sharing the truth. And when I started sharing the truth, that's when everything exploded. Yeah. Financially, energetically, audience. It's only been in the past 3+ years that things have really skyrocketed because it was hinged upon me just being honest.
Yeah.
But I fought it for a long time.
I love that because, again, what were you being? Authentic. What were we talking about before? How authenticity sits right at the top of the Hawkins scale, you know? And
Almost.
I think so many of us are afraid of it. But at the end of the day, what I'm always banging on about is like, that's all you need to be is authentic and to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And then everything else aligns and comes, you know, from the heart, from the soul, as opposed to from the mind. You know what I also love is the fact that you've changed the name of your podcast to Wellness Wisdom. And as we spoke about before, your core talent is the 64. Like literally the gate 64, the universe delivers all the wisdom into the 64. So it's like literally, like my book is Human Design Made Simple. That's a large part of my core talent. I did not deliberately call it that, but that was my mission for it.
Yes.
And for you, it's like, there it is. In your human design, that is your core talent, is to take all the wisdom, like this whole big bucket, if you like everything funnels in, then make sense of it. You know, like
that's so true.
Allow the sense to show itself to you. And what you just showed me about your logo, like that's exactly the 64. It's like, I'm taking in all the information. I don't know why, but this fits here and this fits here and this fits here. I don't know how I know. It just kind of showed up that way. And that really is your core talent.
Thank you. I've explained that before. I take really large concepts and I boil them down to something that's simple to understand. And that's like really the mark of someone in mastery. They can take a huge topic like you, human design, or like wellness. Oh my God, is there a bigger topic on planet Earth than wellness, right? And how do we get the true wisdom from wellness? I wonder how you feel. I believe from my life experience, the only way that I can get real wisdom about how to live well is by taking the time to integrate it. And that just takes time.
Yeah.
It just takes time. And I think the previous version of me was in such a hurry to like get to the money, because I was in a lot of debt when I started. I was $80,000 in debt when I started the podcast.
Yeah.
So my intentionality was scarcity.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to actually embody a good relationship with money, a loving relationship with money. Money was a huge part. That's why in the Wellness Pentagon, financial is part of the house we live in. I feel like that's part of our job here on planet Earth is to be friends and be in harmony with money.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's so much here, but it all stems down to just taking the time to do it and loving the process of doing it, embodying it. Because most of us get caught in just gathering. We just gather. Look at how many podcasts are out there.
Oh my God.
It's like, I don't know. I think there's like 1 million podcasts in the world.
It's crazy.
Which, by the way, the data is like 900,000 of them have only established 7 episodes and then they just leave them up there.
Yeah.
So it like crowds the space for us. I'm like, can you guys just delete it if you're not going to keep publishing, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, what I'm saying is it just takes time. Wisdom takes time. And I actually heard in a book that I don't know if you've heard, it's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
I have read it, yep.
And he talks about this, that most people do not achieve real wisdom until their 40s or 50s because the time before they are just gathering information. And I really feel like that's true for me. Like in the past 3 to 5 years, I've started to actually, like it lives in my body. It's just who I am. I'm excited to talk to you about it. But before I was really just practicing gathering. And in some ways I still am, but I wonder where we'll be in 10 years
Yeah.
with the embodiment. You know, it's exciting.
I love that. And Carl Jung talks about it in his, he has this evolutionary scale, and we start as the athlete. We're all about our body. We're all about the being.
Oh, yeah.
Then we move into the warrior, and the warrior is all about, finding a partner, building a family, the material stuff. And then we cross this line into statesman. And once we get to statesman, and the highest one is spirit, once we get to statesman, this is where we start to actually access wisdom. And exactly as you said, wisdom can't be accessed until you've done decades of living.
Right.
It doesn't matter what that living is, but it's your wisdom's going to be deeper the more that you've followed mastery. What is mastery? It's repetition. It's doing it over and over again, practicing a skill, stopping a pattern and just keep practicing until you've repatterned or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, and it doesn't need to be 10,000 hours, but I'm going to use that metaphor. Once you've done the 10,000 hours, you move into wisdom. And wisdom has got nothing to do with the 10,000 hours other than you know it so well that you can now create your own. It's well, I have had this big experience of learning and practicing, and now I'm in wisdom where I don't know how I know what I know, but I know it from all of this.
Oh, yes. I don't know. Have you gone deep into NLP at all?
Yeah, I've trained in NLP.
Okay. One of the most beautiful things, I love that you teach in story. I love that you teach in metaphor because I do the same thing. I think it's easy for us to understand. One of the best tools I ever got from NLP was the competence model. So we all start out unconsciously incompetent.
Talk about it
then,
all the time.
Then we're consciously, and we know that we don't know. Then we become consciously competent, and then finally we become unconsciously competent. We don't even know why we know, we just know.
Yep.
And this is the beauty of NLP. I'm we're all casting spells on each other, Emma.
Yeah.
The words we use, that's why I don't use the word nervous system. And I have to give credit to a friend and a mentor who's been on the podcast. His name is Dr. Stephen Young, and he's very deep in the Hermetic laws, the 7 Hermetic laws. And he talked about the power and the frequency of words, and how words can heal or words can harm. And it's so true. That's why in the neural tree, where I believe we all become a capacitor, is that we charge our neural tree, our neural system. And we do that in the modern world in so many ways, which we can get into. But unless we're nourished, there's no way that somebody's going to be able to embody wisdom. Yeah. If you're constantly sick, or if you're drained, if you're not, I love your phrase, if you're not aligned to your design, then you're going to be kind of carrying around a radio flyer wagon with concrete all the time.
Yeah.
And you're just going to be exhausted. You're not going to have the capacity
exactly
to learn about human design or to learn about emotional epigenetics. It's not, you're not capable of it because your capacitor is empty.
Yeah. And there's no more, there's no overflow. Let's talk about emotional epigenetics, because I now feel like I've heard all these bits and pieces and I want to hear the whole. So let's go. Are you looking to build a successful human design or astrology business? Do you wish that you had your own chart tool on your website so you don't have to send people somewhere else to get it? Bodygraph.com provides all the resources you need to turn this vision into a reality. We use this incredible software in our business to provide charts and custom reading reports at the click of a button, generate leads, and bring in lots of passive revenue. Bodygraph.com has already helped coaches and entrepreneurs generate over $2.5 million in revenue. If you're ready to take your business seriously, start with a free trial and use the code HumanDesignPodcast to get 30% off for 6 months. Here's what you can do with Bodygraph.com. Embed stunning charts directly into your website, build personalized lead magnets to grow your email list, create and sell detailed reading reports, and even use their free website builder to get started fast. Bodygraph.com is the ultimate all-in-one platform for building your human design or astrology business. If you're ready to join the community of successful entrepreneurs, visit bodygraph.com and start building your dream business today. Follow the link in the show notes and use the code HumanDesignPodcast to get 30% off for 6 months.
I love it because it's been my whole life and I didn't know it, or maybe a part of me did.
I love that, because I was just about to say, you've got to tell me the story to how you got there.
So I just kept seeing these familial traits in my lineage on both paternal and maternal, ways of being, really self-limiting beliefs that were expressed by the level of consciousness that my parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents had. And I'm not making them wrong. Emotional epigenetics at its core is really the metaphor of we all get born into a garden and our parents plant seeds in our garden. But our choice and our heart and our design affects if we water them or feed those seeds or not. And so emotional epigenetics is about understanding why emotion, energy and motion comes into our neural tree, into our being, and how we can give it the gift of moving through us and letting it go so that we don't give it to our children. That's at the core of really what emotional epigenetics is. And the epigenetic part's fascinating to me because I love science and I love spirituality. I think they're one and the same. I think they deserve a lot of love and attention. And so scientifically, the methylation engine in our body that's fueled by NAD, which is the spark plug of our body, if our system is repeating emotional patterns, being bioenergetically burdened, if you will, or if it's repeating unconscious beliefs, or if it's in an environment, so unconscious beliefs, emotional patterns, and environment is what really dictates how the garden grows.
Yeah.
That's our emotional epigenetics, those three things. The one thing that we can all take control of very quickly is just recognizing our own emotional patterns. That's really at the core of the work. So if we can identify our emotional patterns, in other words, how we transmute or keep stuck the energy and motion inside of us through nonviolent communication, through breath work, through parts work, through human design, there's many tools. Then the energy doesn't get stuck in us. And then it can just leave because it's just trying to teach us a lesson.
Yep.
It's just trying to give us some kind of wisdom. And then we can be a model for our children because our children are really the way showers. We're doing the best that we can, but your children and my children and our children, they're going to be the ones that carry on the message of emotional epigenetics. So essentially, it's how we receive trauma. Trauma, I believe, is just stuck energy, right? An event is essentially neutral, which is hard to hear. Sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, all these things turn off and on mechanisms in our DNA. So epigenetics was really early in the 1940s. There was a scientist, and he found that the epigenome was like a chemical messenger, and it would turn off and on the C's, the A's, the T's, and the G's in our genome, in our double helix. But it would never actually alter the DNA. It would just turn off and on either trauma or trust. And this is what's most fascinating. And Bruce Lipton talks about this a lot, right? With his biology of belief. And so does Dispenza, and so do a lot of other people, where I feel like my role as a steward of this is to take science and make it personable and make it fun and make it playful. Because that world can be pretty heady. It can be pretty intellectual, those worlds. And so that's the beginning of what emotional epigenetics is now. I'm sure it's going to transform as I teach it more. But at the core of it, it's understanding those three pieces of us and how we can adapt to the world we were born in and how we can give the gifts back from our parents that we didn't necessarily want or that we're learning how to let go of.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. And what I'm curious about is, okay, so these switches are going on and off, and the emotions that we're experiencing are literally imprinting the life we're creating. So how do we go from being, like at effect of our emotions and actually step into the leadership role of our emotions?
I love that you said at effect, because in NLP we learned that we're at cause, right?
Yeah.
So so at the core of your question is essentially, how do we use the epigenetic science part of it, the science and the spirit, to turn on the trustworthy genes? Is that at the core of your question?
Yeah, and I love what you said. What did you say? It's either trust or...
It's either trauma. It's either training your neural system to be in trauma or to be in trust.
Yeah, and
That's
I think
really
that
what it
is so powerful. So how do we choose to be in trust?
The very first thing that we must do is we must nourish ourselves. We can't do anything if we don't nourish ourselves. You know this, you were burnt out in advertising.
A lot of times.
I was burnt out as a personal trainer. I think we have to achieve burnout to know what that feels like.
I do, and especially both of us are line 3, so absolutely. We have to experience all this stuff firsthand.
I'm sure many of the things I'm sharing, you can just be like, human design, that's gate 64.
There is part of me that keeps wanting to look again at your chart. I might look at you again at your chart in a minute, but do keep going. So if I'm looking at my phone, that's all I'm doing. I'm like, there it is. There it is.
So very first thing, I believe that I have developed this model called the Wellness Pentagon. And the Pentagon is mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial nourishment of self. And so if we're taking the care and taking the time to nourish these 5 sides of us, which is the shape of a pentagon, then essentially we become a capacitor. And this is the craziest part that I was sharing with you. I picked the logo for my podcast, which is the pentagon, the triangle, and the circle, 3 years ago. And I didn't even know what they were. I didn't know the science. I didn't know the electrical science or the sacred geometry behind it. And I come to find out that the capacitor in the electrical system is a pentagon.
Wow.
It's spatial symmetry. And I'm like, duh. The more we feed those 5 parts of ourselves, the more charged we are, the more electrical charge we can hold. And then we can have the courage. And this is the point for the triangle. Then we can actually go into the triangle and start feeling our emotions.
Ugh.
We can start processing our emotions. And to be real with you, it's feminine energy. The chalice of renewal in my program is about accessing replenishment and renewal from feminine energy. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Because the feminine knows the way the feminine was designed. And by the way, feminine can exist in man or woman, just full stop, right? The way that feminine energy heals is it first accepts. It's honest about what's going on. And as men, we tend to struggle with that. Like, well, like, I'll fix it, I'll force it. AKA my podcast name, Wellness Force.
Yeah.
That was the old version. So then once we start to do parts work, shadow work, accessing the inner child, going into breath work, I've been a breath work teacher since 2016. I have 1,000 students in my Breathe program. So going deep into the processing and really the movement of emotion through our physical self, then we can get to the circle. And the circle is a never-ending well of energy and love and acceptance from God, from our Creator. And so the pentagon and the chalice of renewal, the upside-down triangle, the water symbol of feminine energy, leads us to a higher connection, to God, to that which created us. And so all three of these shapes feed each other. And at the core of it is the philosophy. And the philosophy I believe in is something that I created myself. Thank you for letting me go off here because this is deep.
I love it.
About 6 months ago, this program was really brewing in me. And I just started going on GPT and I was like, give me the top 100 philosophies that have shaped humanity. And then I picked my top 44 because I just happened to be 44 at the time. And then out of those 44, I consulted my library and I sat with it and I meditated and I'm like, what's a philosophy that feels true for me? And the philosophy that feels true for me is authentic liberation. So I bought authenticliberation.com. I developed a philosophy, which is essentially a life that is free from projections from our lineage and free from us giving those projections to other people with the pursuit of our highest goals of whatever it is that we love. That's authentic liberation.
Yeah,
I can have whatever abundance I want, not at the cost of you, not at the cost of the we, but solely with the own commitment in my own heart and soul to just release all projections, genetically, lineage-wise. And projections are essentially a trauma happened and now I'm going to project it onto you. You just talked about this in our lunch that we had with my fiance, how we project on each other because of our line 5. Was that it?
Correct, yeah.
So just getting in the education of you and getting in the education of almost 800 episodes in 10 years has really helped me get clear on what the philosophy that created emotional epigenetics really is. And it's about being authentically liberated.
Yeah.
It's about authentic liberation. That's at the core of, I think, how we nourish ourselves.
Yeah.
That's essentially how we nourish the human being, is by first being honest and by next going on the path of authenticity.
I love that. I was just about to ask you, how do we nourish ourselves? And I love that. So tell me about this. I love how you've brought like financial into the Pentagon too, because I feel like this, like money, and we talked about this before, like we're going into this new paradigm, right? And we've got the gate of power, we've got the gate of abundance, we've got the gate of intimacy, and the gate of the now, which is all about presence.
Some serious gates.
I know. And it's the sleeping phoenix. So literally it's this background energy that's all about rising from the ashes. I'm like, if this is not ashes that we're experiencing, or burning that we're experiencing right now, like it's bang on, right? So I'm really curious about like, what is authentic? Oh no, I want to go back to with the Pentagon, bringing abundance into that, because I think we've got some really big topics like the 59, as I said in our interview, like 59 is all about intimacy, and intimacy is transforming, but money is also transforming. And these are two areas where, you know, talk about shame, you know, intimacy, shame, massive. Like, we've been so conditioned to behave in certain ways and be in certain roles. And I'm loving watching the world transform and break all those rules. But I want to talk about this Pentagon, because a lot of your work is so powerful. It's about emotion, it's about spirituality, it's about wellness, and then there's like financial in there. Yeah. And I really want to hear, like, what is it that makes financial so important to be alongside spirituality? Like, I totally agree with you, but I want to just hear, why is that such an important pillar for you?
It's very deep.
Bring it. I love deep.
It's very deep because, okay, so the simple answer is that money is energy. And it took me a long time to actually know that as truth. I had a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. I was raised on welfare, and welfare is where the government pays for your house and your food, because my mom didn't work. She couldn't work with her condition. And my dad paid whatever child support he could, but it just wasn't enough at times. And so I had a lot of shame. I remember being a young child standing in the free lunch line at school and feeling shame before I knew really what shame was. My body knew. Yeah. And so flash forward 20, 30 years, I kept sabotaging myself. I kept racking up credit cards. I kept putting myself in situations where I would buy things and hang out with people that I didn't really want or like, but yet I was filling this kind of pseudo hole in my soul with pseudo pleasure. It wasn't real. And when I started to really, it was honestly in 2022 when I really started going deep into money, because I'm like, I'm actually sick of being broke. I think the pain brought me to a place where I didn't want to be broke anymore. And I was finally really forced, drugged, screaming, to have this really young part of me, little Joshy, 11-year-old little Joshy, connect with how much shame and anger he had towards money. I was born into a world where, let's be honest, like capitalism at its core gets to shift. I believe that there is a conscious capitalism, which is what you and I practice, but then there's unconscious capitalism where you just take without authentic liberation. You take because it's yours to take. Yeah. It's kind of like what happened when we came over from England in 1776 and we wiped out the Indians, right? There's a resonance of shame there that's still being processed. People don't know this, but it's still there.
Oh, it's the same in Australia.
It's the same in Australia.
Like I literally know the point in Byron Bay where all the colonialists shoved all the Indigenous people off the cliff.
It's
like
so
it's
sad.
Awful.
So I just had to exhale there, because that's there whether we want to look at it or not. Just like anything emotionally, epigenetically is there whether we want to look at it or not. And so it's not my job to fix anyone. I don't believe any of us are broken. I really do.
Totally
We're not broken. We're just bioenergetically burdened, which is at the core of emotional epigenetics. We're a bioenergetic system. We deserve nourishment. Can I be responsible and loving to myself to find it upon myself to develop a financial relationship with money where I can afford to nourish myself? Because we don't live in the jungle anymore. We're not in tribes anymore. We live in cities. We live in concrete jungles. And so if I'm going to be an adult, especially as a father with two, that really catapulted my learning. If I'm responsible for my nourishment and my fiance's nourishment and my children's nourishment and my team's nourishment, it's like 11 people that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
If I'm responsible for all of this, can I let go of the pride of wishing it was different? Can I let go of my own pride and accept, to quote the Hawkins scale, that when I have the courage to accept what's real for me, and that is I've taken upon this large load, how can I develop a relationship with money that's healthy, that's loving? And then I would start to look around me and spend time with the people that I believed were vibrating at a frequency where they were literally in such harmony with money that by just being around them, I would get osmosis.
Yeah.
And I would learn by their example, Paul Chek being one of them, that money is actually a great vehicle for giving and receiving love. When you sell something, you're selling it because you believe in it, right? It's a knowing, it's a faith. And so when I sell a supplement, or when I sell my program, or when I sell myself, it's because I believe in it. Yeah. And so money is a byproduct of how much I believe in myself, about how much I love myself, and how willing I am to nourish myself, because we live in a 3D world.
Yeah.
And supplements cost money. Organic food costs money. Investing in human design programs costs money. Like all these things cost money, right? But cost is an interesting phrase, because whatever I'm giving, I must receive in equal abundance.
Yeah.
And so that's where unconscious capitalism comes in. And that's the wound that I had. And that's the wound that, honestly, if I'm getting real down into it, most people have an unconscious wound from money, because they're a victim of unconscious capitalism. Yeah. But conscious capitalism, where it's about the we instead of just the I, that's the salvation that's being called forth right now. And that's really that's why it's in the Pentagon, because when I reject money, I actually reject myself.
Oh, that is brilliant. And it's so important, because so many people listening they're entrepreneurs. And you know, I remember really early in my journey, and there's this journey that so many of us take, is that we're like embarrassed or ashamed to ask for money.
Who am I to charge? I just want to help them for free. It's noble, but it doesn't get anywhere.
No, and you're not serving anyone, you know?
You're not.
I think now one of my great privileges is that I get to work with super conscious entrepreneurs. You know, like these people that, and I know for me, like I make really good money, but I don't really think about I need to make more money. I think about, okay, well, I need to be the best version of me.
Yes.
I'm going to do the things that I love. I'm going to make sure my community has what they need. And it's a very different, relationship with money, to the point where now, like I know about my prices is the moment that I feel like you're taking the piss, like I feel like someone's taking the piss. Like so that's when my prices need to go up, or I need to work less. So again, it all comes back to this, that what you said, that energetic exchange. Like
Yes.
we have to make sure we have this equal energetic exchange.
You know what's funny is that if you look back to the Native Americans or the people from Australia that were,
The Aboriginal
killed,
people.
like
Yep. So,
they actually had a really good system. It was called barter. Now, it was very ancient, and it was like, hey, I'll give you these 7 ears of corn if you give me some meat, right? It was this fair exchange model. Somewhere along the line, God wanted to experience God's self in unlimited ways and brought in jealousy and greed, and I can take just because I can. And this is the part of human evolution that I don't understand, nor do I maybe ever want to understand. Because when I take just because I can take, all that happens is that we both lose.
yeah.
Because then I'm just perpetuating a system of unconsciousness, and then I'm taking from someone that becomes my victim and I become the perpetrator. It's just this really old school game that I don't want to play ever.
Yeah.
And so I always check in with myself. Do I feel like the value I'm bringing is worth the money I'm asking for?
Yeah.
And it's like a body answer.
Yeah,
I know
100%.
you're deep into somatic intelligence. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm charging and I realize that I'm giving so much more than I'm asking for, then yeah, I would naturally raise my prices. But it would go the other way too. If I've, like for example, the Breathe program, I've discounted it so much now because it just runs in the background. I just want to give the gift to people.
Yeah.
I don't need a bunch of money from it anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very deep.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important that we become financially well, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually well, the 5.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that we can be well in our current society or in our world right now, at least. Maybe that'll change unless we're nourishing those 5 sides.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it comes down to, I think you've touched on it, like sovereignty, freedom, power. And whenever I say power, it always makes me think of Power versus Force. You would have read, like it's one of my all-time favorite books.
So
like
good.
really understanding that, because I think a bunch of us, like in the spiritual world, we can go through that phase of being like, oh, that's 2-3D. And one thing that I'm always talking about is we're living in the 3rd dimension. Yes, our objective is to have access to all dimensions, raise our consciousness, be able to kind of like click into everything.
Yeah.
But we got to be here in this body. We got to live this life. So, and every time we make something wrong about this 3D reality, we're going to have to deal with it in us, because it's all about us, right?
Yep.
We're just running these programs and having this experience and then going, oh, that's them. It's
Right.
not them, it's us,
Yeah.
I'd love to know. So, okay, how do we know that we need to work on our emotional fitness, like our emotional
This is
epigenetics?
so
Like,
good.
how do we know that we actually need to work on it?
Have you ever said to yourself, or anybody with us, have you ever said, wow, I just said something, or I just acted just like my mother or my father?
Oh, yeah.
That's how you know.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So it's basically everyone.
Or
and there's-
that's not me. Who is this person? Why?
Right.
This isn't me.
Right. Did I really just say that? I had
Yeah.
a moment. I've had many moments with my fiance, and I'm like, wow, I'm so sorry. I was just really acting like my dad. That's emotional epigenetics.
Yeah, I love it.
So how do we know?
Yeah.
We just simply take a breath and ask the question. It's really one thing I love about you is you said, we actually just create the programs and we create the offerings because they're about us and they're about our own learning. And so guess what my biggest work is here on planet Earth?
What's that?
It's feminine energy. Yeah. It's knowing that growing up with a bipolar mom didn't mean that women were crazy. Growing up with a bipolar mom does not mean that women can't be trusted. Growing up with a bipolar mom showed me what happens when someone is not nourished, when someone is a victim of the pharmaceutical industry, when someone had parents, God love them. I love my grandparents. They're no longer with us. They didn't have the tool set to be able to deal with a daughter who was experiencing that. And so that my life story is why I've created emotional epigenetics. My great-great-grandparents came over from Sicily and landed at Ellis Island.
Wow.
Can you imagine the shame and the confusion they felt and how
yeah.
that lives and breathes in my grandparents
Yeah.
and how my grandparents came from that same paradigm of survival and how
Yeah.
that transferred to my mother and how her disease could have transferred to me or could have transferred to my brother? I say no. I just put my hand up like Neo did in The Matrix, you know? He got to this point where he was just like, yeah, I'm not willing to play this game anymore. He just put his hands up and the bullets fell. And that's the amalgamation that brought me to my work is like, well, my work is actually about my entire life story. It's about all of our life story. We all have inherited trauma. We all have inherited unconscious belief. And here's the kicker. We all have inherited emotional patterns, believe it or not. There was a study, this is fascinating. There was a study done, and it was cherry blossoms with mice. And they would shock the mouse and have it smell cherry blossoms. And this is a very rigorous scientific study. And they found that the response 2 generations down the line, when a mouse of the offspring that was shocked would be fed the cherry blossom scent, that they would give a fear response in their neural tree. There's other science studies out there that show a lot of epigenome turning off and on stress responses in our DNA that go up to 7 generations.
Wow.
So if it's somewhere between 2 and 7 generations based on scientific studies that show we actually inherit the emotional patterns of fear, of trauma, then we're not that much different than mice. Sorry to tell y'all, we still have a neural tree and a neural system that functions like theirs. Why wouldn't we just take a breath and be honest about where we are and just say, hey, this is actually all happening for our good. Can we have the courage to be honest about why it's happening? And then what's really going to happen is we're going to be forced to take a look at our societal lens because it's happening in the I, but the we is where it's really been crunched down upon us. And the we is connected to what we've all allowed to happen for so long. We've all been very complicit in unconscious capitalism. We've all been really complicit to the old structures of power. And all these things are unraveling right now at a very fast pace. And so we are being called forth to embody emotional epigenetic healing because a part of us already knows, right?
Exactly.
A part of us already knows that we're already healed, that we're not broken. We're actually just remembering that we're not broken. That's what this whole thing is about.
I love that. And I talk so often about remembering, you know, like it's already there. We just have to get everything else out of the way, you know, and learn to trust our own authentic truth.
Those things are heavy sometimes though.
Oh, no.
The getting it out of the way. Sometimes it's like, oh, I got to look at this much trauma.
But I know. Or it's, do you know that other one, like, again? Really? Am I facing this again? You know, like having, like you say, like it's having the courage just to keep turning up,
Yes.
And I think one of the things that, you know, hearing this, that literally, I mean, human design, at least the Gene Keys talks about this too, literally we are born with this in our genes. And we're now waking up to understanding like, oh God, like I didn't do anything to have this.
Yes.
That can feel really overwhelming, you know, like I think we are in this time where we are in such light speed. We're moving at light speed. So not only are we waking up to, oh my God, I'm born with this stuff. Yes, I'm probably also creating some of it as well in this lifetime. But we have to move to this next phase of like, okay, well, this is confronting and I feel out of control, but I actually need to accept that, let it be true and be on this next step of, okay, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of people out there that, like for you and I feel like our journeys, and you kind of tell that same story, like there's a certain thing you just get to that point where you put your hand up, like you use that metaphor.
That's it.
And it sounds like a couple of different times that's really happened for you. And I do feel like there's a lot of that energy from a human design perspective. The line threes, we're very resilient. We do fall down a lot, so we're very resilient. But what would you say to the people out there that are like, my God, I've been listening to you or been listening to this for ages. I know what you're saying is true. I long for that being able to nurture myself and give to myself. Like, what would you have them know that this is worth it? You know, like, yeah, you are not a victim of this, but what would you say to these people that are like, they're on the precipice of like, okay, I think I need to do the hard thing. I need to go in and look at myself.
Wow. Just had like a feeling of just crying and feeling these people's pain because I've been there.
Yeah, same.
And even at times in the future, it'll probably come back around. And that's actually part of being emotionally healthy. So I would say if someone is at like the end of their rope or You know, they're like, I thought I healed my mother wound, or I thought I've done human design for 5 years. Why is my life not exactly how I want it? I would just say to them that you don't always get to know why the mystery of God is present. You don't always get to know the answer that you want. But there is a divine orchestration that's happening. And if you can just lean into being uncomfortable, it's not a sexy answer. I wish it was more sexy. If you can just lean into being in the uncomfortableness, Dr. Jill Taylor says that most emotions, actually all emotions, really famous neuroscientist, her brother had schizophrenia, and that's what drove her into the work. She found that from a neurological space, emotions, energy and motion only last 90 seconds. Yeah. The rest of it is mental loops. The rest of it is inherited. The rest of it is conditioned. So we experience an emotion. We are not the emotion, by the way. This is another thing I would share to people that feel like they're at the precipice of a cliff. You're not an emotion. You're just a human who's experiencing one. Full stop.
So important.
That's it. You're not anxious. You're not depressed. Look what you went through. You're not a label of panic. You were just experiencing anxiety. And so you took it upon yourself to do the work, to have a vessel that can process things through it, and that knows when she needs nourishment, and that knows after she podcasts all day that she's going to go sit and drink tea by a pool.
Yes, I am.
Well, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go swim with my children and go in the cold plunge. And I've designed my life. I've taken mature responsibility, even in the face of my external environment, coming from debt, coming from addiction, coming from all these things. I've taken maturity in myself as a human being.
Yeah.
So what I would say to people that feel like they're on the precipice of a cliff and they've done so much work and they've dove so deep into human design and they're doing all the things, just be patient. Just be patient and trust that when your intention in your heart is pure and you really, really love yourself, that all storms will pass. All storms will pass. It's just what you're being trained for and what you're being conditioned is coming from the highest self you could ever imagine. The person who's already 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead of you is looking back at you, giving you this incredible wisdom and saying, my child, it's okay. Like you don't have to suffer so much. I'm just like feeling all the suffering in the world sometimes. It's just overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So that's what I would tell them. I would say, look, like the reason that you're experiencing all of this sadness is actually good because the sadness gets you to acceptance and the acceptance gets you to courage. And then the courage gets you to love. All these things are happening. I'm not afraid to cry in a podcast. I don't have any fear about that because the sadness that I'm feeling is like residue of my own previous life sadness or even sadness that I have right now or the sadness of people with us. Like
Exactly.
if we can just give ourselves permission to feel, then you can tune into this higher version of you. And that higher version always has some insane wisdom to share. Like, my child, you know that this won't last forever. This cannot last forever. In biology, all chaos seeks order.
Yep.
In weather, all chaos seeks order. In the sodium potassium pump in our biology, you cannot have unlimited sodium and no potassium. The system would shut down. So we're biological beings and we're bioenergetically burdened. That's all this is. We're not broken. That's what I would say to these people. And me, I'm talking to me too. We're not broken. You're not broken. You've done 5 years. Well, can you lean into the fact that you might get to do 5 more? Can that be okay? The paradox is when you lean into the fact that it might take more, just you relaxing your neural tree and just you leaning into the fact that it might take longer might actually make it take less time.
Oh, it's so true. And I think, there's so much that I want to respond to, but I'm gonna come to the Essene mirrors. Do you know what the Essene mirrors are?
No.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about.
But I know about the Essenes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
They gave their children gold. Did you know that?
Really, I did not know that.
Yeah, monoatomic gold. That's why I love the mono guys.
Oh.
You got to meet them.
Yeah, I know. Like everyone keeps telling me.
Yeah.
And now I've lost where I was going with the other ones.
Sorry,
No, don't be sorry. Yeah. But I want to talk about the Essene mirrors because I think, that's where I was going to go. Patience. You actually mentioned it before we even got onto this, and now you're saying like just be patient. I feel in this space like everyone thinks it's going to happen overnight, and so much of our resilience and self-love actually comes in the boring moments. Yeah. Because in the moments where, I know for me, I always had this mantra through mental health, and it's so interesting because I've always said, I was doing depression. I was doing anxiety. Like I was so conscious not to make it part of my identity. And, I had this mantra, never give up. So there would be these dark moments and I'd be like, how long can I can't hold in. I can't this, I can't. I'd be like, just never give up. That's all I got to do. And with my anxiety, just stay in the room. That's all you've got to do. Just stay in the room.
Yeah.
And I feel like because of marketing these days, because of the old way of marketing especially, we are so convinced that this happens quickly and fast and it's like this freaking bolt of lightning.
The ego loves that.
And the truth is, it's not that at all, right? It's this moment by moment, step by step. I tell this story about I was walking down the street one day and this was after I'd been healing my mental health for a number of years and I'm literally walking down the street and I'm like, oh my God, I'm happy. I'm happy. Like it had just crept up on me. I didn't even notice it. And I was just having this moment walking down the street. And I feel like people get so expectant and attached to transformation. They're going to go to one conference or do one thing and it's all going to change.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, being a line 3 as well, I think I've actually fallen in love with the boring bits, because now I know that the light, the dark, the polarity, the up, the down, we're both emotional, that now there's this beauty in patience and that's that time where you actually let go. You stop attaching, you stop declaring, I want this now. It's like everyone manifesting, I want this and I'm going to manifest that and I'm visualizing it. I've just learned to go, oh, I don't do any of that. I'm just going to feel like it's already happened. Like this is sweet.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about, are you sweet and okay with the whole slow down, be patient?
I love boring.
Oh, that's so good because most MGs are super triggered by boring.
Well, I love boring because I know it's not forever.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Me too.
I learned to love the boring because it gives me the fuel source when things are exciting.
Yeah.
So do I like it boring all the time? Hell no. I don't like it boring all the time. But I really learn my sacred time is in the morning. So I get up before everyone else. I go in the sauna or I go in the sauna space and I do the cold plunge. Sometimes I'll do a workout as well or I'll work out later. But my morning time is so sacred because that is really chill. Yeah. It's like I'm in a sauna or I'm in a cold plunge. It's not boring per se, but it's not like a thrilling,
do you
vigorous.
Listen to podcasts and all that sort of stuff or do you just sit in silence?
Depends on whatever I'm interested in at that time. Sometimes I'll take a book. Sometimes I will listen to something. I've been returning a lot to the wisdom of Alan Watts.
That's so weird. I've got an Alan Watts playlist on Spotify.
Yeah, just been really nourished by Alan Watts recently. I had a time where I would listen to him for 5 years plus, and now I've just returned to that. So I'll listen to things that make me wiser. I don't watch the things. I just listen because I want to be able to be in my environment and not just staring at a screen. And also like being a parent. So part of this threshold is being a parent. And when you're wiping a diaper that then gets poop on your hand and you've only slept 3 hours and you're hungry and the other child is screaming, it might not be boring, but it sure does feel like hell.
Yeah,
right?
it's a challenge.
And so if I can go through the stages of parenting and the stages of entrepreneurship, if I think for 1 second that I don't require downtime or less exciting, kind of more boring time, then I'm foolish. Yeah. I'm really foolish. So to quote Jung, the branches of heaven can only be exalted if the roots touch hell. You can't have one without the other.
100%.
You've got to go to the hell if you want the branches to touch heaven. So how do I be at peace with the boring? I know it's not forever. I know that even one day my children will be older and I won't be picking up all these things and stressed out. And so if I can just live, honestly, just live through it and just allow myself to live through and not be so attached. This is actually the most important part because you touched on it earlier. If I can be mindful of my attachment to my pride, this is a big learning curve for me in life. So on the Hawkins scale, pride is where really all the reason and love is accessed. But most of us are stuck in pride. It should be different, Emma. It shouldn't be this hard. I've already done 5 years of human design. It shouldn't. Anytime I catch myself saying it shouldn't be this way, then I know I'm stuck in pride. So then I go back and I ask myself, okay, what am I not feeling that I get to feel right now? And it usually comes up in silence, in meditation. That's kind of the boring, harder work is when you're not stimulated.
I agree.
Because when we're stimulated, it's really easy to be stuck in pride, stuck in jealousy, stuck in sadness, stuck in shame. Because then we can just scroll on a screen and just not feel anything.
Exactly.
And
Ignore it.
that's the antithesis of boring. So I think boring is actually good. Boredom, if you look at child psychology, boredom is really good for children. All these parents that give their children screens, I'm like, good luck raising a strong man.
Oh my God.
Are you
it's
kidding me?
It's so true. And like it's same like with my kids, I did, you know how a lot of parents put their kids in every after school sport, there's all these extracurricular
They're constantly
activities.
going, yeah.
My kids, none of that. Unless they want to do it, unless they've initiated it, I'm like, no. And there's part of me as a mother, again, I have teenage boys and I live in this amazing town that they can be at the skate park at 8 o'clock at night. It's completely safe.
Yes.
But there is part of me that's like, oh God, please don't let him whatever. But in the same breath, they just need that space and that freedom.
Yes.
But I love what you said
Yes.
about the boring, like, because I think, and I'm going to use the word stillness and silence because that's the thing that I have become so good at recently. And literally my entire life I've not been good at. Thought I was, but actually wasn't, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where all the wisdom comes in. That's where we start to really connect to source. And that's what I've really discovered is like the miracles happen when you're open.
Yes.
You can't be open if you're constantly doing stuff. Like I used to have this very regimented morning routine.
Yeah.
And now the only thing I do is because I wake up at 5 a.m, same before everyone else, and then I get myself some tea and I sit. And when I started doing this, and this is what I do an hour before I go to bed as well, because I've got teenage kids.
Yeah, I can't do that yet. Okay.
But when I first started doing it, it was so uncomfortable. I would notice myself going, oh, I might just go and clean that up, or I might move that, or, oh, I'll just work on that. I'm like, whoa. So I was so uncomfortable just being still and silent and doing nothing but drinking tea. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like we're also, because we're in this age of information where we're all consuming, we're taking in so much. This is why I love human design as well, because my design's always telling me now's a time to learn, now's a time to sit, you know, and giving, again, that internal guidance system, showing us exactly where we actually need to be heading as opposed to where our mind wants us to head. Because a lot of when we do this work, I don't know about you, but my ego, she's so freaking clever. She looks like, sometimes she sounds like the most divine spiritual guru. And then I'm like, oh, I've got you. You just dressed up as a guru. You dressed up as spiritual. That's not spiritual. That's totally ego, right?
Yes. Wow. Okay. You know what I was visualizing? The act of play is spiritual warfare.
Oh my God, I love it.
When you play, it's actually spiritual warfare against the clutches of the ego.
So true.
But then there's another paradox, because it seems like there always is. If I play because I want other people to see how cool I am playing, that's just the ego. But if I play just for the sole intention of connecting and laughing with you or playing, and there's no ego in it, it's literally like dark matter can't exist in that space. Yeah. That's why I love how playful you are. You live in a kind of it's a serious world. Personal transformation can be pretty heady, pretty freaking serious.
Yeah.
So that's what you do. And that's what I feel like I'm bringing to emotional epigenetics is, okay, we get the science, like we've rung the bell on the science here. We understand. What's the heart of the matter? What's the embodiment of the matter? And how can we make something that's inherently serious, playful?
Yep.
To go from seriousness to playfulness requires an incredible human being, a human being that is really aware of their ego at play. Yep. And I think that's a lifelong job, by the way.
Oh, hello.
Like, look at what happened with Osho. Are you kidding me? Have you seen Wild Wild Country, that documentary on Netflix?
No.
Yo, if you guys want to see what happens when a spiritual leader runs a cult, watch Wild Wild Country. He started out pure, as many people do.
Yeah.
Most gurus, most teachers, they start out really pure, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Even feminism started out pure. And then something happens where the ego gets in there and self-righteousness gets in there.
Yeah.
And it muddies the waters so much that the original mission is lost. And so if we can just have an original mission to play, just for the sake of playing, then I think that's the ultimate spiritual warfare for the ego. The ego can't live there. If it's pure play.
I have to look at your design. And the other thing that's really cool about what you said is because you're a line 3. So one of the hallmarks of a line 3 is humor. Like we're very funny people.
Yes.
And we can take very serious topics and just laugh at them. We're good at laughing at ourselves.
I wonder from a shadow standpoint, as you look at my design, there's a lower level that I can fall into, and that is being too serious.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
100%. I actually think you've got I think that it's the 29. I think it might be the shadow of the 29. It's like seriousness.
Okay.
You've also got the 14, which is interesting. Again, we often call it a money gate, but the key to the 14 is, and it's like a tap. Like once it's on. It's like whoosh. But if you're not being authentically you, if you are compromising, the shadow is compromised. If you are compromising your authenticity, that tap gets switched off. And it's like this part of you that's like, yeah, very magnetic when it comes to finances, when I'm giving my what we call power skills, my authentic me. But the moment that you step outside of that, tap goes off.
Makes sense.
Yeah, love it. So I want to tell you about the Essene mirrors because you might want to go and check them out.
Yes, let's go. I love that you remembered that.
So the Essene mirrors, as you know, the Essene people, that was Jesus and his mom, and it was the like religious group that they were in. And they had these 7 mirrors. And I'm not sure if I can remember all of them off the top of my head. But number 1 is effectively perception is projection. So what you see in others is in you. And you can have more than one of these happening all at once. Then the number 2 is, that'll come back to me. Number 3 is what you've lost or has been taken away from you. So these are the shadows that are going to show up around trauma. You know, like if trust, like for me, trust was taken from me as a very young child. So trust became a really big issue for me. But the mirror that I was thinking about, there's one that's all about the dark night of the soul. And like I want everyone to know about, because once you hit, this mirror says that once you hit your dark night of the soul, you effectively have all the tools you need for it. So you won't be in complete chaos until you're ready to become the human that will rise above or transform through that chaos. Like that's pretty cool, right?
That's so cool. I did not know about the mirrors.
It's so cool. And do you know the other
I
one
get to look into those.
Yeah, go look at, and Greg Braden did a lot of work on them.
Okay.
And it's really hard to find information on them, but they're really cool. The one that blew my mind was the reflection of your relationship with, you know, God, universe, source is the reflection of the relationship with your primary caregiver, your mum or your dad. So for me, my mum was my mum is my everything.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I couldn't trust her. I didn't know if she loved me. I didn't know because she was, she was a narcissist. I felt like I wasn't important. She never told me that she loved me. I never had any, no tactile. And I have a lot of that in my design. Like I need physical touch.
Yeah.
And so this mirror really woke me up to that's exactly the relationship I have with God and Source, is that I love you beyond measure, but I'm constantly like, are you there? Are you there? I need to do something else. I need to be better. I need to deserve it. So I think that mirror is so powerful. Does it resonate with you?
Yes. You know what I was 2 things I was thinking about. The first, I interviewed this neuroscientist, Dr. Judd Brewer, and he said in their studies that the somatic intelligence, our body, can feel something as true or false almost a half of a second before our brain can recognize it. So when you're talking about the mirror sounds like it's what's speaking to the body, not the mind.
100%.
To the soul,
Yep.
to our somatic.
Yep.
And then the other one was I was thinking about people that have repressed or suppressed memories. The intelligence of the body knows that, it needs to survive. And so that's its primary function, is survival. So if someone's not mature enough to process a sexual trauma or a car accident or whatever it is, the body will wait until the unconscious, which is the body, will be able to hold it. Because some people, they might have memories like in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s of sexual abuse. And it'll come out in a breathwork session. I've seen it, or in a psychedelic session, or, just in some kind of like deep emotional process. And I say to that, good, because that means that the body is keeping you protected. Yeah. Your body, science tells us this, but also we just already know that we're not supposed to heal overnight. Like, have you seen this dude with the magnet where he puts the magnet over your head and he's like, you're healed?
Oh, yeah, yep.
I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Come on. Like, what are we doing? Like, that is just such a tragedy. I'm sure it started out good. I'm sure his intention is to help people. And maybe for people that want to jump on that timeline, it works. All I'm saying is like the wisdom you brought with the mirrors and everything that we've talked about today. And if you look at any ancient text or anyone that's done anything as far as growing themselves or being connected to God, it just takes time. There's no immediate button that we get to push where all of a sudden you're healed. There are some people that have repressed memories that come out way later in life because then they're mature enough to be able to process them. They're mature enough to be able to handle them. So I love the mirrors. I love all these things because they're essentially pointing towards Bessel van der Kolk's work. You know, The Body Keeps the Score. That was his book that he wrote.
Yeah.
And it's a great book. And it's really an amalgamation of everything you're describing with the mirrors.
Yeah. And I love that as well, like just talking about like when the body or the subconscious mind is ready, it will heal, you know?
When it's ready.
Yeah.
We want it to be ready now.
I know, right?
I want to heal right now.
And you know, like the crazy thing is like, so for a person that I'd done so much healing work and obviously I keep doing it and rah. But then to be faced with like childhood trauma, being, you know, narcissistic abuse, seeing all this stuff come up, like same deal for me. Like all these memories are coming back and I'm like, whoa, like how did I not see them?
Yeah.
So yeah, the body is so fascinating. Now, do we have a little bit more time?
Of course.
Amazing. Because I'd love to talk to you about the business. So I talk a lot about business. I help people with business. And my theory is that we want to work less, live more, but you know, do it on purpose. We want to feel like we're making a difference. Yeah. So I have this ethos, and I suppose we've kind of touched on it, that we're actually designed to create a business that's it fits us perfectly like a shoe. So I'd really love to hear about the story of growing your business. I know you've already touched on there was a moment where you stopped like holding back, you know, maybe the shame, and you brought it to the table and then the business took off. So how did you build this? Was this a path of learning from one person and trial and error? Was this literally guided, heart, soul kind of thing, combination of the two? Tell us a bit about the business that you've created and then like, does it fit you like a shoe?
I'm in the process of buying a new shoe.
I love it. Just so many people are doing that right now.
I'm in the process of buying a new shoe. I've been a storyteller, space holder, internet marketer for 10 years. And with my recent presentation, the activation I did at the biohacking conference, I'm really now stepping into the very thing, by the way, that I will help my students do. So for a long time, I would help people breathe. And it was successful. It was great. I loved it. And for a long time, I've been an affiliate for products. It's great. People do need nourishment. So these are good things. But really at the core of all this, what I've been doing for myself is I've been learning how to be an identity transformation architect. An identity transformation.
Architect. I fucking love that.
That feels true for me. So that's the shoe I'm buying.
Yeah.
Now, in order for me to step into that shoe, it requires a certain foot. And the foot is connected to authenticity of what's really worked for me personally. Yeah. Have I walked the exact path experientially myself first, that I would then teach to someone else? And the answer is a resounding yes. I mean, like going from 280 pounds, addicted to pornography, 80 grand in debt to this abundance that I have now, it's come from me learning. And a lot of my learning has come from the teachings that I'm putting out now. Actually, I'm sorry, all of it. All of the teaching that I'm putting out now is from my own process. So I went from being in debt, having a lot of stories about money. We talked about that. Once I healed the money story really in 2022, then I started to open myself up to, okay, well, who are partners that I want to play with? Who are companies that I believe in? And how can I share their stories in a way that has integrity? And that brought in abundance. And now I'm stepping into new abundance with a new shoe. And that is, hey, I've actually been exactly where you are. And I want you to know you don't have to suffer as long. You don't have to go to this deep, dark place of not feeling your emotions. I think that honestly, really what I'll probably do for the rest of my life is just learn how to feel and process my emotions and teach men and women to do the same.
Oh, I love it.
That's essentially most likely what emotional epigenetics will become. Yeah. It'll just be wrapped in science, so it'll apply to the logical mind of people that need it the most.
Exactly. And feed the ego. Like just tell the ego, here's the evidence.
Here's what you got. Here's the cherry blossom study. Here's the epigenetics studies. Now, are you ready to feel? Are you ready to feel?
The important stuff at least.
Are you ready to feel? Yeah. So once I learned about Hawkins' work, it's been honestly, Emma, it's been this amalgamation. I feel like that's a big phrase for me to an amalgamation of sussing out the truth and spending a decade of my life podcasting has really helped me become an identity transformation architect. Because why did I do the podcast in the first place? It came from my own pain. It came from me not wanting to be where I was.
Yeah.
So that's the authenticity that I'll bring. And so there's a real process to it. It starts with the pentagon, it goes to the chalice of renewal, and then it goes to the circle. And inside of each of those modules, there's a ton of information, a ton of resources, a ton of goodness and truth that I've lived by getting bloody and crying and making mistakes and learning. And like, I think really what you do and what I do and what the best guides do, because I feel like you're a guide, is we guide people along the path so that they can suffer less.
100%.
That's real. They're not going to not suffer. So full stop. Like, I'm not saying just because you would do human design or do the emotional epigenetics or do the life method program that you're not going to suffer. There's going to be some suffering in there. But I truly believe wholeheartedly that it will be much less suffering than if you were to walk that kind of a path. And it's because we all look for this. Don't we always, with every mentor you've had, with every mentor I've ever had, I always ask myself, if I'm going to receive wisdom from them, do I like their life?
Yep.
Do I like the embodied? Or do they have a great relationship with their wife or husband? Do their kids want to spend time with them? Is their physical body healthy? Are they fun to be around? Then I'll listen to their wisdom.
Yep.
But if they haven't embodied those things, I don't want to hear their wisdom because I don't want to end up like them.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I'm stepping into with the shoe. So it's gone from just being broke, learning how to market, doing my money healing, my money wound healing, doing my parts work. Parts work has been huge for me.
It's crazy. And when you say parts work, you mean the NLP parts work, yeah?
NLP parts work, yes, but more specifically, Dr. Richard Schwartz.
Okay.
IFS, Internal Family Systems.
Yep.
That's part of my program as well. Meeting with Teal Swan was helpful because she has her ancestral healing, so I got some great education from that. And then honestly, taking the best from all of these masters, and even honestly, human design will be a part of it too. Now I'm realizing this because taking the best from every discipline and putting it into something that resonates with me, it'll resonate with the people that are on a timeline that I'm on, which I believe is millions and millions of people.
Yeah,
really.
I agree. I so agree.
So that's been my financial journey.
And I love it. And I think what I love to hear, again, it's a business that you've created for you, you know, yes, to serve, yes, to have an impact, yes, to help navigate through this time of change. But, you know, I'm always saying to people, like, don't look at me and say, you want what I have, you know, what suits you? Like build something that's going to feel great for you. Yeah. I mean, everyone's always asking me like, oh, where can I get someone else like Taylor? So Taylor, who my COO, who does everything, who literally drove me here today.
Right. She
does everything. Yeah. She is this epic human. Everyone's like, I want one of them. And I'm like, don't want Taylor, want your version of that. Yeah. Because it's so much more than we are so much more than the job we do. Yeah. We are the energy that we bring. We are this frequency, you know, and we've got a mission that is literally coded into our DNA that we're here to express. Yeah. So be inspired by others, sure. Yeah. But what does it bring up in you? Who do you become because of it?
You know, what's really interesting with what you shared is that when we become the person that we know is really us, there's a peace, there's a natural inspiration when others are around us because they're like, oh, I want what she has. I want to feel like that, or, you know, I want to be like that. So all that we're doing by finding our own lane and finding our own purpose is just based upon the honesty. So it's like, I learned this from a mentor, and I think you'll resonate with this. Honesty creates clarity, and then clarity creates speed.
Ooh, I love it.
But you can't have clarity unless you're honest. So for everybody in this entire community that's watching, listening, if you can do the work on being honest first, then you get the clarity of exactly why you're here. And then when you have that clarity, like you said, the faucet will turn on, and then you'll repeat that many times. Yep. So honesty first, then clarity, then the clarity creates the speed. And
I love the honesty piece because that's authenticity. You know,
that's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's a fun way of saying be honest.
Yeah. And oh God, do you know what? It's one of my highest values. I'm like, just tell the truth. I don't care if I don't like your truth. Just tell the truth.
That's what
I don't care if you like my truth. I just got to tell the truth.
One thing that I am embodying with my children especially when they're old enough to start lying, is I will just be like, Nova, Naya, it's okay for you to tell me the truth, even if it's hard.
Yep.
But I don't want you to ever lie to me, because then you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
So that's what being a real parent is. And unfortunately, your mom, your dad, my parents, they were bathed in a lot of lies from their parents. And like Alan Watts says, it's all wretch and no vomit. We're just raising children to raise their children, how they raise their children. Nobody ever gets it out. Nobody ever vomits out the lies. So if we can just have the courage to vomit out the lies with our children by teaching them honesty, nobody's saying we have to be perfect, right?
We can't be.
How are you going to be 100% honest 24/7, 365
Exactly.
for your entire life? Like, good luck.
Yeah.
But having it as a goal is good, is noble.
Exactly. And it's that whole like, and then you've always got apology, like if you realize that it's not the version of you, or you've, maybe not told the full truth, then that itself is part of the lesson. That's part of the sharing itself, I think, again, that's authenticity.
That's right.
One of my favorite little mantras for line 3s is like, we're winning or learning, because we fall down so much. We're winning or learning. There's no such thing as failure. And I really feel like that's for everyone right now.
So good. Yes.
Well, do you think there's something that we haven't covered?
No, it was beautiful. I love our connection. There's a playfulness, but there's also the science.
I know, God, if only I could like climb inside your brain. Like there's so much cool shit in there.
There's some good stuff. Yeah. No, this is really good. I love what you bring. I love what everyone brings to the table, because it really allows us to, it's almost like, when there's a charcuterie board, it's like there's thousands of things at a big party, and you just feel which one is for you and which one isn't. That's what all of this is. Louise Hay was on a stage once, Hay House Publishing.
Yep.
And one of her most famous talks, she said, listen, everyone here at this conference, they're all going to be wonderful. They're all going to say these amazing things. But guess what? We're all saying the same thing. You're here to learn how to love yourself unconditionally, and we're all going to tell you how to do it in different ways. And I was just like, when I heard that, I was like, that's it.
That's it.
We're all speaking our truth based on our life experience, and it resonates with somebody or it doesn't. And I say good, because when you go to the bottom of human design and you master it, then you might go to something else. When you go to the bottom of emotional epigenetics and you master it, you will be involved with human design, because all of these things are just getting us closer to who we really are. Yeah. That's what everything we're doing really is.
Exactly. Like, again, it's that we're just coming back to oneness. We're just coming back to this full feeling of, oh my God, I am everything and everything is me. So how could I ever think anything other than this is perfect?
This is perfect.
And then we live. Oh my God, I could talk to you forever.
Yes.
But I do, I'm going to have a little bit of a geek out on your design, because I love to do that.
Okay.
I love that you've been in sort of marketing and online business for 10 years, because you actually have a channel that we call The Entrepreneur. So it's this very it's also the salesperson. It's the energy that sets up the sale. It's the energy that closes the sale. And it actually is about moving life forward. It's about moving the tribe, the human race forward to away from just surviving to thriving. Yeah. So I'm like, you can't make this shit up.
Wow.
And you actually have I would say uncommon. Well, it's the only incarnation cross that shifts its theme every 18 and a half years. And everything that you're talking about, and even as you're shifting into this new kind of iteration, more as a teacher as well as the storyteller, you are actually coming off the back of your Uranus opposition, which is all about your internal revolution. It's like, oh, fuck, hang on a second. Who am I? I'm not really sure who I am, but I know that I'm not that. So you go through this big change, and I think that's what you've done for the last few years. So you're really like, okay, now I know who I really am at my heart. And you've moved into the gate 19. Now, the gate 19 is the gate of the sensitive. This gate, it's like when it's tuned into every frequency on the planet. It is the energy that could stand next to a tree and go, yeah. I totally understand what you're saying there. Or a dog, or God, universe, source. It is this energy that is understanding the needs of self and others. It's a very, very sensitive energy, but it also means sensitivity. So much of what you're talking about, sharing your story, even the fact that you're birthing the whole, this whole program, this whole, it's so much more than a program, this whole ethos, that this is what it's about. It's about emotional sensitivity. It's about really being able to feel, because that's what the 19 is all about. Like, can I feel this? And you've actually got the whole channel, which means that because the channel, and it's a really important gate for you right now, and you've got the whole channel, the other half of it is the gate of revolution. So you've literally all of this beauty and sensitivity and emotion and this, a real deep connection to frequency, whatever that may be. It's at the other end of that, it's all about revolution. It's all about we need to break all the old rules and standards and we need to reset the new ones. So I love hearing all of this because, again, it's just all over your design.
You're just getting like pings. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I want to look at my phone again because I'm sure he's got that gate. I just love it.
So cool.
But thank you so much for joining me here. It's been a freaking awesome time.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a cool world we get to operate in.
I know,
it's so fun.
I know. It's
worth all the struggle.
So much. And do you, I don't know about you, but I sometimes in quiet moments, I just look at my life and myself and I'm like, fuck, how good is life? I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for all of that,
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
same.
So worth it.
So worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I want everyone to know where they can find you. How can they find you on social media, YouTube, all the things?
Just come play with us in our community.
Yeah.
Just come over to our tribe.
Yep.
It's liberatedlife.com. And that's where there's a ton of free resources. And honestly, it's just a starting place to learn how to charge your capacitor, to understand these models. There's a guide in there that's free, totally free. It's called the Self-Liberation Blueprint. It's a blueprint. It's not the whole house.
No, I love it. I'm going to go check out the blueprint.
I'm not going to sit here and lie. It's a blueprint
Yep.
that gives you an understanding of how your house works. But obviously, there are many more things that you get to add to the house.
Of course there are, because you're a manifesting generator.
Yes.
I'm sure there's loads of stuff.
Yes.
So exciting. Thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome.
And thank you everyone for being here. I trust you got what you needed from today, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now.